Welcome to the Willpower Podcast. All right, Regan. So I wanted to start this because we're at the beginning of a new year. What is the hardest thing that you did in 2025?
Hardest thing from what perspective? Like a mentally hard thing, an emotionally hard thing, a spiritually hard thing, a physically hard thing? What kind of hard thing?
Pick your poison.
I don't know. I didn't really find any of it hard, frankly. I guess if I had to choose, it would be dealing with the fear in my household because I have an aneurysm both in my aorta and in my brain. I have no fear of death. I'm not afraid of any of that. But when you look at your husband who just looks, just scared. He doesn't have the same devotional commitment to being in relationship with God as I do. And he has a lot of fear about what comes after now. So yeah, that's probably been the hardest thing.
That's an interesting one. So you don't feel a fear of death yourself,
Not at all.
but it's difficult to see someone else fear it or fear your passing.
Yeah, and their unwillingness, like I say in my writing and to anyone that'll listen, there's one thing you're guaranteed to experience, and that's your own death. And yet most people are completely unprepared, scared. Yeah, so that seems, I don't know, irresponsible maybe.
Yeah, I mean it's a hard one. It's because it's not something you can really practice for, right? Yeah, there's no way to halfway experience death. It's either you experience it or you don't, and then that's it. Once you experience death, you're no longer living. You're no longer a prospect to experience it again. So I guess
I disagree. The only thing that dies is your body.
Okay.
The truth of who you are lives on forever, eternally.
Okay. So, but how does that help you prepare for death, I suppose?
Well, I think you need an underlying philosophy, point of view that has you not fear it, rather be excited for what comes next.
Okay. So I guess we can dive right into this, because I do think there's a clear split here. I don't believe in any kind of afterlife, and so I am curious where you would.
Then how do you explain the law of conservation, which you may have learned in high school physics?
Yeah. The law of conservation is
energy can't be created or destroyed.
Yes.
Do you think
correct?
Do you think you're an energetic system?
I think there are two types of energy that we talk about. One type is the physical constant of energy, and the other kind is the kind of like ethereal, like soul speaking, how I feel energy. And I think those are two separate things. And when we talk about the second one, we sometimes make the mistake of equating it to energy, which is physical energy, which is like, the mass has energy. Something that's moving has energy, the 1/2 mv squared. The like physical energy, those are two separate things.
Well, do you agree that when your heart beats, it generates an electromagnetic wave of energy?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so where do you find that? I don't know.
The certainty of it? The certainty of it?
Yeah, sure. That's a good way to
so
put it.
After my spiritual awakening at the age of 27, I learned, not by reading a manual, because there's no post-awakening handbook that I could find. But one of the phenomenons that occurred in the years after my awakening, and the yoga tradition speaks of this, certainly, is I learned how to exit my body at will and return to it. So when you know how to do that, you don't have any fear of death because you understand if you can leave your body and actually look at it, right? Everything else, your perceptual system, everything that you think of as William is the same, other than you're not in this encased, in this thing, this temporary home, and you can return to it at will. Well, then you realize you're not the body. And frankly, even in a well-facilitated shavasana, which is the last pose in any yoga class where you're just resting, you understand that you can observe your body, right? How it feels right now, right? You can be aware of bodily sensation. And you can also be aware of the activity of your mind. Well, who's doing the observing, the witnessing of both of those things? That's the part of you, the transcendent part of you, the eternal part of you that doesn't die.
So tell me about this awakening. Like, where were you in life? I know you were talking about releasing a book in November, Tragic Magic,
Oh, yeah, that was
and I think it
last year.
last year, November.
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe that's what the book is about, correct? It's a memoir about your awakening.
Well, I mean, the awakening is certainly talked about in my memoir, but talks about all sorts of things.
A bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's focus on the awakening.
Sure.
So where are you at in your life? What was life before and after? Like what's the
Sure.
whole change?
Well, I mean, I think I need to go back a little further in time for you to understand it. So, when I was younger, like a little kid, I was highly sensitive and I could hear people's inner thoughts. I could see things that, the average person didn't seem to be able to see. So, for whatever reason, I was born with a sensory system that I don't know, was a little different. I think we're all built the same, but for whatever reason, I came in this way. And I went to a school as a kid where we meditated every day and we did Tai Chi for gym and we photographed our energy field with Carillion film, all the while, reading Shakespeare and learning algebra and Latin. So that was the foundation. But it was inadequate, even though I had a contemplative practice as part of my education. It was inadequate to help me manage all of the sensory overload that I was dealing with. You don't want to have access to someone's inner thoughts. That typically is not a pleasant experience.
Sorry to cut you off. Can you tell me like what that would look like? Are you like in gym class and you hear someone like, "Oh,
Or whatever.
this person
Yeah,
looks
you're
funny
just
in their gym
yeah.
shorts."
Yeah,
It's all that kind of stuff. And what is it like you focus on someone and then you are like, "Oh, I know what they're thinking," or is it just popping up all the
it's
time?
just all the time. And
Okay.
one thing that I also saw, now granted, there was a lot of chaos in my home. My mother was bipolar. She met her third husband in a mental hospital, not a great place to find a partner. So he was violent. I mean, life was very chaotic. Yet I had this safe haven of my school, thank goodness. Anyway, I would see things, for lack of a better word, entities. I mean, they looked human. Sometimes they looked kind of demonic and they scared me. I mean, I spent a lot of time afraid because of what I was perceiving. So anyway, at the age of 9, I was down in my basement doing gymnastics, and the same guy who used to harass me as a kid was sitting on top of my washing machine, sort of in this fiery throne. I know it all sounds nuts, but it's the God honest truth. And the terror I felt in witnessing that, I don't have words for. And I screamed out loud, "I need all this to stop." And I ran up the basement steps. And the veil came down. I didn't have that kind of access anymore, and I was grateful. Okay, so fast forward, I'm 27. I'm a junior executive with a major global publishing company managing, I don't know, I think back then about $13 million in revenue for this company. I didn't have a spiritual practice. I had rejected all of it for lots of reasons we could get into. And I was really stressed. I worked for really dysfunctional leadership. A mentor of mine confided at this meeting that she had been raped. I mean, it was really hard. And all I wanted was a decent night's sleep. So my best friend had come to this national sales meeting in San Francisco because she was looking to get a job with Nancy Oakes, who owns Boulevard in the city, which still exists. Great place. She's a chef. Anyway, she brought the book Return to Love by Marianne Williamson as a gift for me. This is 1994, January of 94, probably before you were born or
Mhm.
close.
It was before.
And I opened the book and it's, Christ consciousness, this and that. And I just looked at her and said, "Heidi, I love you, but I don't have time for this." As I smoked, another cigarette and maybe downed a shot of vodka just to deal with the bullshit back down on the floor. One of these people was a rapist. I mean, it was just horrific. So I went to bed. Heidi went to party in the city. I was like, no, I just need to get a good night's sleep. And I don't know what time it was. I think it was around 1 in the morning. It was middle of the night. I woke up with a very familiar sense of terror, the same kind of terror I used to feel as a kid. And I felt it before my eyes were open. I knew someone was in my room. I could feel it. And I opened my eyes, and there at the end of the bed was that same entity that used to harass me as a little girl. And I literally sat up in bed because I was fighting the good fight at work. So I was kind of in this very sort of fearless place, speaking truth to bullshit. Anyway, I sat up in bed, looked at this entity and said, "It's you. It's only you. I'm not afraid of you." And I went back to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, all I could feel was unconditional love and the love of God, a feeling I had known as a kid, as part of my education and part of my upbringing. I forgave my stepfather, who was this, chaotic, violent epicenter of my trauma growing up. I understood my mother completely, why she had such a hard time here. And all I wanted to do was talk to my mom because I was in this very elevated state of complete divine embodiment. And I just wanted to talk to her. And I couldn't reach her. The only person that picked up the phone was my stepdad. And I told him how much I loved him and that I forgave him. And that the only reason we exist is to learn how to embody the love of God, particularly when it's hard. He dropped the phone in response. I heard it kind of banging around, and he comes back and he said, "Well, blonde beauty," I'm a little more brunette now. He said, "I don't have an explanation for this, but a golden eagle just landed on the crabapple tree in the backyard." And then a moment later, he comes back and he says, "Now there's a red fox looking up at this eagle." So from that moment, and that was over 30 years ago, this violent, angry man has been nothing but kind and gentle. So the energetic transmission of what I was holding, my willingness to love him completely, changed him. And I changed too. So I left the corporate world. A couple of years later, I was teaching staff at the Heart Math Institute, leading business executives and business people in experiences where they can learn how to access the intelligence of their heart. And it goes on from there.
What do you think? Do you think there was like a decision in a different way, your different attitude towards this man who would show up, when you were 9 and then stopped and then came back when you're 27? Why was there a difference in your attitude towards him? Where, like, there was no fear. Where did the fear go?
I have no idea. That's such a good question. I think about it often. For whatever reason, that is how I chose to respond. And it has informed everything since. I mean, if you haven't noticed, we live in a very dark world. Fear predominates the human condition. We have all these spiritual teachers that have come over the dawn of time, basically teaching the same thing, that the kingdom of God is within you and that love is the only thing that can transcend darkness. And so to be given the opportunity, as I was, to learn quite directly what it means to be fearless in the presence of darkness. And I was initiated for years after my awakening. I mean, the scariest things happened to me, mostly at night. But once I was able to confront these entities that came, back to visit a lot, like every night for 2 years, and I finally got to a place consistently where I could hold the love of God in their presence, guess what? They stopped visiting, and I haven't been visited since 29. And I think, frankly, that's what we're all called to do, regardless of what your kind of spiritual or religious orientation is. Can you love when it's hard? Can you begin to understand that the thoughts and feelings that you have are your choice? Always. Even when you feel like you don't have a choice. That's your nervous system fooling you. And I had a great foundation as a kid at the school where, Maxwell Maltz, who wrote the book Psychocybernetics, which birthed the positive psychology movement in the 60s, was on the board of the school and was the mentor of my founder. And his research as a plastic surgeon, he noticed, he'd fix disfigurement, and some people would develop really healthy self-esteem, and other people acted as if they were still disfigured. Well, why is that? Well, the story you tell yourself about yourself is what you'll end up creating and experiencing. So even as it relates to learning how to be emotionally sovereign, right? Because that's really what this is. If you want to take all the spiritual words out of it, right? How can you be sovereign no matter what is happening, right? In yoga, that's called santosha. this idea that contentment is not determined by external circumstance. Because as long as that's true, then you're on this effing roller coaster, basically determined by the choices of other people.
Yeah, I did a Vipassana meditation retreat earlier in 2025. And yeah, that was one of the biggest things that stood out was this repeated statement, suffering is of your own creation. Like you create your own suffering. And it's such a good reminder because yeah, it's so easy to get into the mindset, oh, when this happens, everything will be okay. And recognizing, no, everything is okay once I figure out how to make it okay here
How to
and
be
the
okay.
external stuff. Yeah.
And having a relationship, a conscious relationship with God, not God in any book, right? Your own direct felt experience of that energy. You can't really do that kind of sovereignty without that relationship, in my view.
Okay. So we talked briefly about yoga before we started recording. And so I would love to hear about where yoga came in with kind of this new period of your life after age 27. When did that come in?
Well, it came much later, While I had meditation certainly as a practice post-awakening, I was guided in my 40s to the practice of yoga, mostly because if I had continued with high-impact aerobics, I would have dropped dead. So we can get into, I faced death 4 years ago. So anyway, my intuition told me to stop high-impact exercise and to begin practicing yoga. I had dabbled in it, over those almost 20 years after my awakening. I'd go to classes from time to time. Meditation, right, which is the sixth limb of yoga, sixth or seventh. Do I have that? I always flip dharana and dhyana. Anyway, yeah, so I was practicing that aspect of yoga, certainly. Yeah, and when I began doing that, instead of jazzercise, I just found a new home, right? A new community. And I was then guided to do teacher training. And now I've done about 600 hours of training in the tradition through the student of an Indian yogi named Baba Hari Das, who had come to the United States in the 50s. My teacher was his student, and he was a silent yogi. He didn't speak from 54 till when he died in '08. Yeah, so I just find the whole tradition, the 8 limbs of yoga, to really be a great synthesis of everything that I had come to understand before, quote unquote, studying yoga, if that makes sense. And so I like to share it. And so I teach it for free. People come to my beautiful studio. I converted a 3,000 square foot garage on my estate into my yoga center, and people come and experience it. Many don't like it because we spend much more time in breath work and meditation than, in a typical studio where you take a couple of deep breaths and you're off to the races and it's all about power vinyasa. Anyway, that's not how I teach. It's much slower and gives you, I think, a lot more opportunity to really experience divine embodiment. Yeah, and it's a good thing that I slowed it down because 4 years ago in meditation, I was told by God to urgently move home. I was living right across the street from Monterey Bay in a beautiful resort community where I could walk to an organic grocer. I was teaching yoga on a lawn overlooking the bay. It was a life I had built for 25 years. Well, home meant Missouri. Who the hell wants to do that? But I knew the truth of it because I know that voice. It's been guiding me for a long time. So I literally flew out the next morning back to St. Louis, called a friend who was a realtor, and I said, God says I have to urgently move home. I do what I'm told. She said, okay. And my husband's like, I'm not getting in the way of you and God. I don't care where I am. I just want to be with you. Let's go. I'm like, all right. So I go to St. Louis and it doesn't feel right. I'm like, I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be. So I closed my eyes, tuned back in, and received Franklin County. I didn't even know what that meant. Well, that's out in the country, about an hour west of where I grew up in St. Louis. I found this home. That was another miracle. You have to read about it in the book. Found this, and we were here within 3 months. So it was December of 21 that I was told to urgently move home. We're here in March. And come late May, again in meditation, I'm told to urgently go to a doctor. So urgent is in both transmissions, though when you receive divine guidance, there's no urgency in the felt sense of it. It's actually very calm, steady, matter of fact. So living out in the country, you can see a doctor right away, which was the next day. And what do doctors do? They listen to your heart. He listened to mine. He said, Regan, something's terribly wrong. You have a very loud murmur. We need to get you scheduled for an echocardiogram as quickly as possible. So that was the next day. And the day after that, I learned I was dying and that I had a birth defect in my heart. My aortic valve was severely calcified, and the only solution was emergency open heart surgery. Well, Barnes Hospital in St. Louis, where I was born, is top 3 in the country for aortic valve replacement, which is why God told me I needed to urgently get here. And then, the surgery was on a Friday morning. I was cleared from the ICU the following morning, which rarely happens. I mean, they, saw you in half. It's kind of a big deal. And I was home by Tuesday. And come Tuesday, the head of cardiothoracic surgery, Ralph Damiano, my surgeon, came to see me, and he kind of pats my leg playfully and said, Regan, there is no medical explanation of you. I had less than 0.2 centimeters for blood to flow through my aortic valve, which in the literature of cardiology is considered not capable of sustaining life. He said, I don't know how you were alive. I don't know how you walked. I was teaching yoga on my back lawn while getting this yoga center, my big garage, renovated. And so I said to him, do you believe in Jesus Christ? I said, and I asked that from a wide point of view. There's nothing traditional Christian about me. If that's your thing, great. Not my thing. But Jesus has always been my teacher. And he said, I do. I said, well, that's the only explanation I have. And then, as things unfolded, the scar on my chest, I don't know if you can see it because it's so faint. Anyway, I have a cross on my chest. That's how my scar healed. I showed it to my surgeon. He wept. He said, well, Regan, that's another miracle. It's a vertical cut. I have a sense that this is a little more than you were thinking you were getting into today.
I love it. It's okay. It's definitely much different, but I'm very open to the story.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And so now, because of the congenital problem that I was born with, I have an aneurysm in my aorta. And they're watching it, and if it gets a certain size, they're going to have to replace my aorta, which is kind of a huge deal, much bigger deal than a valve replacement. And then I learned last month that I have an aneurysm in my brain. You get scanned enough, they're going to find stuff. 1 in 20 people actually have brain aneurysms. The only difference is I know. So I'm having an angiogram next week where they're going to take a much more careful, bigger, 3-dimensional look at my brain and the aneurysm to see if they need to do anything about it. My intuitive sense is that I'm never going to have another procedure, either for my brain or my heart. I mean, if there's no medical explanation for me being alive, like every day is such a gift, and yeah, bring it. I'm good.
Wow. And so then that brought in yoga.
Yeah, because yoga is conscious union with God. That is the whole point of the practice. And asana, the physical practice of yoga in Sanskrit, just means to sit. The physical practice of yoga is designed just to help the body have more ease for meditation and for divine union. Not typically how it's practiced if you go to a yoga studio in any particular place.
Yeah, certainly not. I know they like you mentioned, they focus on that, the physical part. So you said this a few times. You said it's like loving when things are hard, and you emphasized hard. And I think this is a very noble purpose and intention. Tell me about when, what does that look like? When is it hard to love? Or when has it been hard to love for you?
When people behave ignorantly. When I see in the skies the geoengineering and the poisoning that's happening on a daily basis, that's hard, right? When I experience every day that making money and profiteering is more important to most people that run food companies or otherwise than human health. We're being poisoned on purpose every effing day. Or even the television, right? The electro frequency of television, like if you were to name what that frequency is apathy. So yeah, does it make me mad? Do I have the potential for anger of all the manipulation, all the darkness, how asleep the average person is? And that's really not their fault. They're programmed to be, right? Their education typically is all about obedience. I have this fun scene in my book because, I went to this amazing school, right? But, when you're a little kid, like your friends in the neighborhood, that's like what matters to you. So I begged my mother to let me go to Riverbend Elementary because that's where my best friend in the neighborhood, Nancy Bear, went to school. She's like, sure. So I had just finished writing a report on Denmark. My mother had lived in Copenhagen in her youth. And so I was interested in that. And so I had just done a research paper on Denmark, which I had illustrated myself, and I was very proud of it. And here I go to Riverbend Elementary, and because of my age, I'm put in first grade. At the grade school where I was, there was no grading or grade level. You just did amazing things and you just kept going, right? So I get to Riverbend, excited to be with Nancy, seated at a desk, right? And there's like 30 kids and we're all at our desks. And I'm given a mimeographed, I don't know if you know that word. Anyway, a piece of paper that was copied with a picture of a clown. And my task was to color the clown, make sure, to do it between the lines. God knows, don't do anything, other than that. And then there was a little, section at the bottom of the paper with a dashed line for me to write a sentence if I could, or a phrase about the frickin' clown. I mean, I didn't have words for it at the time, but I felt disrespected. Like, are you kidding me? And my mother was in the back of the classroom with the principal, like observing me. And my mom's like, how is it? And I'm like, I went the next day because there was a field trip to a bread factory, which I thought was fun. And that was it. I went back to my magical school. So my point in saying that is that even at Riverbend, like you're thirsty, you need to go to the bathroom, any of the things, it's all permission based. It's all about doing things right. Don't make mistakes. Do what you're told. Regurgitate back what you're told. And then we wonder why we're not, having a spiritual revolution right now. Makes perfect sense. So yeah, that's hard to deal with. So all I can do is stay true to what I understand and know, continue to tend to all the trauma that I've known, continue to connect consciously every day through meditation to God, and be that beacon of light and love and of spiritual clarity in all my interactions all day long and all night long. I mean, that's really all I can do.
Yeah, there are definitely problems in the school system, as you have clearly pointed out. It's interesting how it has almost not changed at all. Like at least public schools, they all work very similarly. And it's just kind of like a system that was found that was like, okay, this takes kindergartners and it puts out 18-year-olds who can go and work.
And do nothing else.
Yeah, right. And that seems to work. And so we're just going to do that forever and never change it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of indoctrination now politically in the public schools, rainbow flags and this and that, like that has no place in an educational setting in my view. I mean, most kids, I work for the leadership at a point in my career of the Cal State system for the chancellor. And most students coming into Cal State basically couldn't place in college algebra or freshman composition, which meant that they basically had arithmetic as their quantitative skill, and they couldn't construct an essay worth reading. Well, what are kids doing 8 hours a day for, 15 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a very good question. So This will be a fun one because I'm curious if you can take this somewhere. What are you currently struggling with?
I've had the flu for 5 weeks. So yeah, I don't feel well. And while it's a blessing in a way in that you realize how much you take your health for granted, and I've done a lot of health stuff and I have gratitude like as a practice, right? But you realize when you're unwell in the way that I've been for 5 weeks, yeah, you learn a lot. And I'm still kind of in discovery, like, why the hell is this happening? I usually am not sick for more than 2 days. And it's very low grade, like, I never had a fever, I never had a sore throat, I just profound fatigue and a dry hacking cough. Where, like, exercise, like, all the things that I love doing, my physical yoga prep, like, I just can't. So that's hard. And this place where I live, out in the middle of the country, is incredibly narrow. Like, people are very narrow in their point of view. And I have been alternative or countercultural, like, coming right out of my mother, like, just right out of the gate. That's who I am. That's who she was. And so, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit about, I mean, I'm not struggling with God because I'm sure there's a reason, but I'm like, "Whoa, God, you told me to come here, and I don't like it very much." And he, not he. I mean, if anything, with all this pronoun stuff, I mean, God is definitely an it and not a he. Anyway, but that energy wants me here. And recently, a young woman confided in me that when she came to her first yoga class with me, she was guided to, she's just like looking online, found me and came. She was suicidal. Like literally she had a gun in a pasture and was going to blow her head off. And she met me and was educated by me, not just in the yoga class. I do other things here. And she told me I saved her life. So, you know what? For me, when I learned that a couple of months ago, that's enough. Okay, God, if that's why you named this place, Washington, Missouri, just so that I could save this amazing young woman's life, I'm good.
I think we underappreciate the like human to human impacts on a small scale that we can really have. And a lot of people are like, at least in like what I've seen on social media, podcasting, like people want a ton of people to see what they're putting out, but they don't care about the like insane impact that you can have on people who are directly interacting with you.
Yeah, and that's
And I
their
feel like,
ego, wanting to be an influencer or whatever. Yeah, that's not their spirit. That's their ego.
right. And so it's very cool to hear that. And yeah, I can't imagine just like the experience of knowing, oh, this person is kind of alive because I came into their life. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I gave a talk last night as part of, sorry, that touched me, part of the women's speaker series here in my town. And this older woman who I've met on a number of occasions, and she's come to things that I've done, she kept telling people that I have had the most profound impact on her and that I've made such a difference, that I've changed her life. And I literally don't even know what she's talking about. We haven't really had that many moments, but to her, it's been, life changing. So yeah, I'll just continue to do that. And then, ideally, God tells me that it's time to move to Florida or something. Because
That would be
they've just
nice.
outlawed geoengineering and they've outlawed vaccine mandates. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of my place. Let's go.
Yeah. So just to touch back on the gratitude for your health, I went through an experience last month. I ran a 100-mile race, and then the following like 4 days, I could not walk. I was like, especially it progressively got better, but the first couple days, like standing up with the help of my girlfriend was intense pain in my shins, and like getting up the stairs was a nightmare. It took us like 10 minutes to get me up the stairs. Going to the bathroom, I had to load myself into this chair. She would wheel me over to the bathroom, help me stand up, leave me alone, come get me. It was awful. And it was also an insanely good reminder of all the things that I can do and that I do every day without thinking about it. I get up and go to the bathroom, I go downstairs, I go for a run, I go work out. Like all this stuff is stuff I couldn't imagine doing those 2 days. I was like, there's like, I don't even know how I could walk. And so I do think, like you said, um, there's a lot to be taken out of those moments of poor health
Well,
for sure.
and contrast is the most effective teacher. I mean, for sure.
Right. You see the complete opposite
Yeah,
and
like
then
how do you know
becomes clear.
what the love of God feels like if you don't know its opposite? If you don't know terror, you haven't seen, sort of evil in expression, right? That makes that relationship with God a lot more powerful.
Yeah. So tell me what your dream life looks like.
Well, I would love to find a way to keep my gorgeous home and yoga center and 10 acres and my own water and all the things and live on the panhandle of Florida at least 6 months out of the year. So in that transition, which I'm working on, I'd like to write. I'd like to write another book, which God has said is called How. It's just simply how. Tragic Magic was my memoir of, what I mean, it wasn't everything. There's so many things I didn't talk about in there. But I'd like to be more prescriptive in my next either book or online course or something because people really need support. This is a really dark time and it's going to get harder. It's not going to get easier. And, the psychopaths that run this planet and have always run this planet, yeah, it's going to get more intense. And people need tools and they need to be embodied, like in that embodied relationship with God. And, sadly, God is like a triggering word. People are like, I don't want God. It's like they're responding to the humans that defined what that is, not the is itself. And so I want to encourage any of your people, like God to me is the most profound love I've ever known. I don't even have words for how it feels when you're connected to it. Yeah, it's not like a old man with a beard and a notepad noting, who's naughty and nice, like Santa Claus or something. But again, going back to the indoctrination of the public schools or whatever, well, it's not an accident that a lot of people have a mistrustful relationship with this word, God. And if you know anything of the history of the people that are in charge of that relationship, well, what a dark crew, right? Like, so yeah, I just want to give people the opportunity for that direct experience, because once you have it, nobody can tell you anything about it. And once you can't not know. Doesn't mean that you hold that consciousness all the time. Goodness knows I don't, certainly. And I've been at it since I was 3, but it's something you're devoted to.
Yeah, I think that insight you just pointed out applies to everything in life, which is once you know, you know. Because I think there are a lot of people, and myself included, in many ways, who are living their life based on like books or things that I've heard on podcasts, and thinking that I'm going towards something that I've heard about, or I'm doing something that I was told. But it's once I achieve something or once I experience something fully, that thing falls away. Like it's now mine. This is my experience. This is my thing. And yeah, so that's a very interesting insight of yours, which is you don't need to be told once you've experienced it. It just is, and that's
Yeah,
yours.
and all the telling about God, like, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Reagan. We can wrap it up here. Thank you very much for coming on. I would love if you
Sure.
could tell people where they can keep up with you or just, find out
Yeah.
more.
Well, I've pivoted to Substack. That was another divine directive. So I was spending a lot of energy creating videos on Instagram, and I was just like, you know what? No. The things I have to say, I can't do in some punchy video for 60 seconds or whatever. So find me on Substack. You can it's Regan Caruthers 1, I think, but I think I'm one of the only Regan Caruthers in the world, so I'm easy to find. So you can find me on Substack if you're interested in my writing. I have something I'm going to put out there today. It's like an essay form of the talk I gave last night, which is all about how to access divine guidance. And then regancaruthers.com, that's my website. I do want to revise it. I have a lot of writing I can put in the stories section on that website and just, refresh it a little bit. So I'm going to attend to that. I don't know, sometime soon. And if they want, and again, I'm very selective about this, but if you have people, in this ecosystem really interested in developing a disciplined inner life, if they're interested in conscious union with God, because God and divine guidance is always available, it's you that is variable. So if you're interested, if you feel like you're ready to be disciplined and you're ready to go, on my website under Inner Life Coaching, there's an opportunity to just have a complimentary conversation with me where you tell me your goals. I tell you kind of how I go about things and we feel if it's a fit. But like I said, I'm super selective about it because most people lack in the yoga tradition what we call tapas, which is that inner fire of discipline. Yeah. I mean, particularly here, the culture is what's a quick fix? Can I, have an injection instead of changing my diet? And what pill is there for, spiritual awakening? Well, there is none other than your devoted, committed daily practice. And most people, that's an unpopular thing, nobody wants, and most spiritual teachers that are in the public eye don't talk about it. It's like, oh, do these 5 things and these 5 things will happen. I mean, what a bunch of BS. So anyway, if people are interested in developing that kind of inner commitment, then they can seek me out through my website.
Awesome, Regan.
Yeah, and buy my book on
Yes,
Amazon.
go check it out.
Yeah, Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Yeah, that'd be fun.
And then we'll keep an eye out for the coming how.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And yeah,
Thank you, William. I appreciate it.
bye, everybody.
Bye.